The growing obesity rate.
Obesity is a public health crisis.
An alarming trend out there in obesity.
1 in 8 of the world's population are now classed as obese. That is more than 1 billion people.
Why is obesity skyrocketing? Why do people need fat loss medications like Ozempic? Why are metabolic diseases like diabetes and heart disease reaching epidemic proportions today? Well, the answer will shock you, and it's right under your nose, on your plate. For decades, we were told fat was the enemy. Butter became taboo, eggs were demonized, and low fat was plastered on literally everything from yogurt to cereal. But here's the question: if we were cutting out fat to be healthier, why are we sicker than ever? See, we've been blaming the wrong culprit. It wasn't saturated fat expanding our waistlines and making us obese. It was the very thing we were encouraged to eat more of. You'll remember the food pyramid. Well, the reason we're unhealthier than ever is there at the bottom of that pyramid: carbohydrates. And today I'm going to show you why carbs, especially the ultra-processed kind, are the real villains behind our modern health crisis. By the end of this video, you'll not only understand why this has happened, but also how you can protect yourself and your family from falling into the same trap. Let's go back in time to the 1950s. A scientist by the name of Ancel Keys publishes a study, the famous 7 countries study, that links saturated fat consumption to heart disease. The media grabs a hold of it, the politicians run with it, and the low-fat movement is born. But what you probably didn't hear is this: Keys cherry-picked his data. He ignored countries where high-fat diets correlated with low heart disease. And what came next was a public health disaster that will change the way we eat forever. The food industry jumped on the low-fat bandwagon with gusto. They stripped fat from foods and replaced it with, guess what? Yes, sugar and refined carbohydrates. Suddenly, we're eating breakfast cereals with more sugar than chocolate bars, chugging fat-free yogurt loaded with high-fructose corn syrup, and munching on so-called healthy granola bars that might as well be dessert. And while we thought we were making heart-healthy choices, something horrifying was happening under the surface. Between 1970 and today, the average American's carbohydrate consumption has increased by a shocking 25%, while fat consumption has decreased. At the same time, rates of obesity and type 2 diabetes have exploded. Coincidence? No. Let me tell you about my friend Amy. She was 38, a mum of 2, and she did everything right according to the guidelines that she'd been taught. Low fat, everything. Whole grain bread, fruit juice instead of fizzy drinks, but she still could not lose weight, and her energy was on the floor. And her doctor had just told her she was pre-diabetic. Now, as you can imagine, she was devastated. And she looked at me at the time and said, "I feel like my body is broken. What am I doing wrong?" That moment, it hit me like a ton of bricks. How many of us are like Amy? How many of us are following advice that's actually harming us? And if carbs are truly driving this epidemic, why have we not been told the truth? Here's what happens when we eat a carbohydrate-rich meal, especially the processed kind. Your body breaks down those carbs into glucose, which spikes your blood sugar. Your pancreas then releases insulin to bring that sugar back down, storing the excess as fat. But over time, if we keep bombarding our bodies with these sugar spikes, breakfast cereal, bread, pasta, snacks on repeat, our cells stop responding to insulin properly, and that is insulin resistance. And this is at the root cause of metabolic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and even some kinds of cancer. Did you know that some populations like the Inuit of the Arctic and the Maasai of Africa thrived on high-fat diets for centuries? The Inuit traditionally ate mostly fish, seal, and whale blubber, almost no carbs. The Maasai consumed large quantities of meat, milk, and blood. Despite their high intake of saturated fats, heart disease was virtually non-existent in both these populations. Contrast this with the modern Western diet overloaded in refined carbs, and the difference is truly staggering. Meanwhile, saturated fat, was framed as the villain. But here's the thing, study after study now shows that natural whole food fats like those found in avocados, butter, eggs and meat aren't just safe, they are essential. They're satiating and they help regulate your hormones. Plus, they don't spike your blood sugar like carbs do. So why did fat take the fall? Well, because it's easier to blame than the real culprit, the processed food industry. Let's talk about the multi-billion-dollar elephant in the room. Ultra-processed foods, from cookies or biscuits to fizzy drinks to sugary granola bars, they are all engineered to be highly palatable. They light up the reward centers in your brain like fireworks, making you crave more and more of them. These companies know exactly what they're doing. They're not just selling you food, they're selling you addiction. Consider this, a groundbreaking study published in the journal Cell Metabolism found that people on low-carb, high-fat diets not only lost more weight, but also improved markers of heart health like triglycerides and HDL cholesterol. And in 2017, a comprehensive meta-analysis of over 300,000 participants showed no significant link between saturated fat intake and heart disease. Yet the low-fat myth persists. Why? Think about it. How many of us have watched a loved one struggle with obesity or diabetes? How many of us have felt trapped in our own bodies, wondering why our diets aren't working? You were set up to fail by an industry that profits from your pain. Okay, so what can we do? Are we doomed to live in a world where carbs are everywhere and health feels out of reach? Well, absolutely not. Here's how you can fight back. Prioritize whole foods. Start by cutting out ultra-processed foods. Generally, if it comes in a packet and has more ingredients than you have fingers, it's ultra-processed, so avoid it. Instead, shop around the perimeter of the grocery store. Fresh vegetables, fresh fruit like berries, meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. These are the foods your body was designed to thrive on. Embrace healthy fats. Do not fear fat. Add responsibly sourced avocado to your salads, cook with butter or coconut oil, and enjoy full-fat dairy. These foods keep you full and keep you energized. Reduce carbs strategically. Swap out refined carbs for nutrient-dense options. Replace white rice with cauliflower rice, pasta with zucchini noodles, and sugary snacks with nuts or berries. Listen to your body. Everyone's carb tolerance is different. Experiment with what works for you. Pay attention to how you feel after meals. Your body will tell you when you're on the right track. Educate yourself. Knowledge is power. Look into resources like the ketogenic diet, the paleo principles, or low-carb, high-fat approaches. The more you understand, the more empowered you'll be to make the right choices. And move more. The one thing our ancestors did so much more than we do today is move. They moved constantly. They were anything but sedentary. By comparison, many people today sit bound to desks for most of their day. This lack of movement simply compounds the negative health effects associated with a high-carb, ultra-processed food diet. So move more often. Take the stairs, walk, cycle, and run. Your body will thank you. Remember Amy from earlier? Well, after switching to a low-carb whole foods diet, she transformed her health. She lost 30 pounds, her energy came back, and her blood sugar normalized. Most importantly, she felt in control of her body again, and if she can do it, so can you. Now it's your turn. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button, share with someone you care about, and hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoy health topics, check out this other video up here.